Hey guys. Gosh, this is the first time I'm live streaming the State of Flow podcast in the State of Flow Facebook community. Here we are. I get to the roundabouts in a moment. While I'm streaming this here, look at you and speak to you guys, I'm actually doing the audio recording for the actual podcast to go up to Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all the things. So I'm going to hit record in a moment and I'm not going to stop and start. I'm just going to flow how I flow. And here we are, but thank you for joining. Alright. Welcome guys to another episode of the State of Flow podcast with me, Lena, Kaliyah. Thank you so much for being here. And this is episode number 41. And it's all about finding ease and flow through moving with your moon, aka really attuning to natural needs and cycles and recognizing that we as women are cyclic beings. And if you are not a woman and you're listening to this right now, don't skip and don't stop. It's interesting and relevant for you if you have women around you in your lifetime, or even if you identify as someone else but a woman, you still have somewhat energetically a cyclic nature you can respond to and therefore call in more flow, more ease, more abundance, more success, which is all an extension of yourself. So here we go. Alright, first up, it took me so long to get here today, man. It took me about a couple of hours to prepare for this one podcast episode. And then I thought, well, I just put so much effort into this. I should probably record quite a few, but I'm not gonna at the moment because we're on a fortnightly cycle for new podcasts. I'm literally recording as I go every other Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, and it just leads to my energy being really relevant with what's going on right now instead of a podcast being pre-recorded months before. That's how we're rolling right now. It might change again, who knows. But man, today was a day where technology did not work for me at all. I was originally going to live stream this on YouTube, then YouTube told me I can't just because apparently my camera is engaged somewhere else, so that didn't work. Then I tried to live record that here 15 minutes ago and I kept receiving colds over colds that interrupted the live stream, so I had to try again. Before that the computer didn't load for like an hour. And here we finally are after I went outside and had to dance under the garden hose and watered the plants and had a good shake, a few deep breaths, and I'm all reset. Also, what didn't work, actually what I'm talking about here right now, and turns out being good that it didn't work out, is what I did post on an Instagram live, and it's 10-minute live, and it was really awesome what came through. And then when I went back to it to actually upload and save it, it was just gone. As if it never happened, it was just gone. But it doesn't matter because here we are, and it actually works out perfectly that I'm talking to you guys in the State of Flow community group. If this works out alright, this is how I'm going to keep it, that the actual video recordings of this podcast are starting in the State of Flow community Facebook group, and eventually they go into my YouTube channel, a channel of mine with which I haven't kept up so well up to date so far, but that will change in the near future. Alright, here we go. So, what leads me to talk about finding ease and flow through moving with your moon is that I actually spent my day today writing copy and writing input for an upcoming immersion I'm running here in Yelling Upsiding, which eventually is going to be online too. That's all about flowing with the moon. It's called the Feminine Moon Flow Immersion. And as I was writing musings about it today, I just got so giddy about this subject. And it's just something that I am so passionate about because, firstly, being woman is such a privilege, and I talked about this in an episode a while ago that was about your menstrual cycle is a privilege, and that is a fact. We as women are so privileged to have another barometer of the body that's giving us indication as to what's going on within us, physically, mentally, emotionally, as well as it directly allows us to tap into our creative, Shakti, Kundalini, life-giving, most powerful, potent energy that we possess, which is our sexual energy, creative energy, right? So, and the more we access that, the more we can then allow in flow and ease and abundance and success and joy and contentment and all the things we want to feel in our life. As I said, if you're not a woman or you're not menstruating anymore, please don't skip past this. It's still a relevant topic for you because we are still cyclic beings. This whole imposed way of linear living is imposed. It's not a natural thing. It's not, life is cyclic. It's the cycle of life, not the line of life. It's very, very, very little things in life are actually linear, and regardless of whether you're a man or woman or human or otherwise. And so you find that even though you might not be menstruating, you're menopause, or you're actually not biologically able to menstruate because you're biologically not a woman, the content here will still be relevant for you because of the cyclic nature that we have as human beings. Given that we are a part of nature, what's happening in the nature without is also happening in the nature within. And the more we can live in sync with those circadian rhythms, with those natural rhythms that naturally cycle with the rising and the setting of the sun, with the wandering of the moon, with the changing of the seasons, the more we actually start to tap into our unlimited potential, right? And call in flow, ease, and optimal well-being on any level. So this is why I'm so passionate about sexuality, conscious sexuality, and the sacredness of it, and menstrual cycles and women's health and so forth as an extension of finding your flow and empowerment, because it's another tool. So finding ease and flow through moving with your moon really means to start and honor those natural cycles of yours, this natural dualistic balance of yin and yang that's required, that in a perfect world our body would want us to do anyways. And just to go back in history, a few hundreds, if not thousands of years ago, when we were still hunter-gatherers, we didn't have electricity, we didn't have all these advancements we have these days. And while they're also convenient and make life very easy, they also disconnect us big time from our true nature that is in sync with the nature out there. For example, light correspondence. Right now I have 2 screens in front of me as I'm recording this, and it's 7 o'clock almost PM, so the sun is about to set, yet I'm still surrounded by so much artificial light that's actually confusing my body, and therefore confusing what's happening within my body, and the optimal functioning is disrupted. So whereas thousands of years ago we literally didn't have any of this around, we were living so immersed in nature and so in sync with her rhythms, and so within community of differently aged women within our tribe, within our clan, within our band, that you found that back then women were all menstruating together at the same time on the new moon. How powerful is that, please, energetically? Excuse me. If you then want to get into the whole manifesting power of moon cycles and going with that and calling in abundance as well as of your cycles, that's a pretty powerful occurrence. And it used to be the norm. It used to be normal back then until we started to become further disrupted through, the way humanity's going. So that as a little bit of a background. Naturally back then, because we would have lived with nature cycles, we would have naturally rested more and called in more yin energies around the new moon and our new moon, and be more yang and active and outwards and get stuff done and be extroverted on the full moon / our female ovulation time. And so you might find that these days you might actually be menstruating with the full moon, with the quarter moon, with somewhere in between, maybe on the new moon. Awesome. There's no better or worse. It simply means that those 2 cycles of the moon and your menstruation are not synced up anymore, which also isn't a bad thing, but it also on a subtle level can, in the overall picture, create more confusion in your body, because I'm sure you would have noticed some in your lifetime how you've been impacted by the moon and the moon energy, right? So that's obviously an energy that impacts us on top of the seasonal energies that impact us, on top of our own hormones that obviously impact us. So if all these are running on different cycles, that's different stuff impacting us in very irregular patterns on top of another, right? And creates a little bit of confusion in the body. So in order to not only achieve optimal health, but given everything is an extension of us, and once we access optimal health, because our physical body is our vessel for everything else to be accessed, then we can access higher states of consciousness, call in more abundance, more flow, more ease, and all the things you want to call in. Given that's where we want to be, it makes sense to work on calibrating our natural cycles. And how do we do that? So you can either start to work in with your personal menstrual cycle, and as a rule of thumb, you have 2 weeks inward, 2 weeks outward. So at your menstruation and the autumn week, which is the week before menstruation, you would slowly, in autumn, preparing yourself for winter hibernation, which is your menstruation, and then take it nice and easy and have grounding, self-care practices and so forth, and then re-emerge in spring, leading up to summer, which is your ovulation. Or you might want to choose to sync up with the moon cycles around you. And the more you do that, which is the same principle of yin and yang, where you're yin on the new moon and leading up to, and more yang after the new moon leading up to the full moon. Doing either of those will help you to recalibrate, in an ideal scenario, your female cycles to the moon cycles, or your normal human cycles if you're not a female, or if you're not a menstruating female, to the moon cycles, and that will kind of clear up this energetic slate of what is impacting your body, your being, and your state, right? So, like I said, this rule of thumb is that let's say we're going with the moon phases instead of your particular moon phase, but it is up to you. And also in the immersion we're running, we are doing it this way as well, because we might all be menstruating at different times. We are going to work on syncing up with the moon phases. So on every new moon, you want to cultivate more inward practices. And that comes in all those different aspects of your life, right? It comes through eating really nourishing and grounding, beautiful foods, doing nourishing, grounding, reflective activities and lifestyle practices. Make sure you get rest. Maybe you have the luxury to schedule your appointments and your hecticness of the month and the most work engagements and the most booking out of your calendar. Maybe you can schedule that towards the more active yang part of the month or of your cycle. Or you can, if that's not a luxury you can afford with your work and you're not that flexible, perhaps you can just create structures and routines around busy schedules when you are in the yin moon phase that help you to further ground and nourish and recalibrate from any exhaustion, from any stress, from any to-dos and getting things done you have to get throughout the day. Whereas in the full moon phase, that's where you get the clear sign, and that's where it's go. Only if you have recalibrated and rejuvenated throughout the new moon phase. All this really just has to do with reconnecting back to our natural rhythms. You'll find that if you are someone who easily burns the candle on both ends, like a Pitta and Vata person, they're both very much action orientated, very much go, go, go. And then before they know, they have actually burned the candle on both ends because they forgot their self-care. Pitta people will have forgotten self-care because they are so driven and so ambitious and so perfectionistic that that's simply on their priority list. They're here to get shit done. It's kind of, some surfboards have this slogan of like, oh, I die when I sleep when I'm dead. And it's a little bit of a Pitta attitude, right? It's like my way or the highway. I rest when I'm dead. I'm going to get this done. I'm here to achieve. And so they will burn the candle on both ends because of that, if you are not conscious of that pattern. And Vata people will burn the candle on both ends because they get so excited about just about everything that they start a million different things at once. And then they have this big backlog. And then they get overwhelmed and then they get burnt out, right? But this is also a sign of that you are not in sync with your natural rhythms, that you're not actually giving yourself the opportunity to rest on resting appropriate times and then put in full powerful action on action-orientated times. If we, go, 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 burnout, go, 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 burnout, go, 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 burnout, we're not actually running on full capacity, and we're not actually accessing our highest potential in anything we do, because we're pushing ourselves, pushing, and we're only stopping once we've so overcome our capacity that our body just collapses, which is burnout, right? Or anxiety, or overwhelm, and all those things. But instead, if we can practice to find flow in a cycle, in action and rest, and action and rest, and going outward and going inward, and getting outward and going inward, and action, reflection, right? If we can create a healthy cycle of those, so say your rule of thumb, it's 2 weeks more inward orientated, more of the slow work, the creative work, the nourishing work, the stuff that doesn't have hectic timelines to it, the stuff that makes you feel good, that's beautiful, nourishing, fun, joyful, peaceful to you. Maybe they are things you can really do in your yin moon practice, a yin moon time, or those 2 yin weeks of the month. And then all the more go, okay, right, logical thinking, getting things ticked off the list, critical thinking, rational thinking, all this kind of stuff you can do in those other remaining active 2 weeks of the month, right? Okay, so they are your 2 basic principles, and it's so easy to talk about it, and it's a fully different number to actually implement it and live it. But just remind yourself that it starts with those very simple steps. One thing that actually came up with a coaching client of mine in a one-on-one session today is actually every journey to any goal you want to achieve is made of so many different steps, and we're just so conditioned to think like, oh yeah, cool, I sucked at this today, and I did yoga this morning, but everything else was pretty much racked. But you did yoga this morning, you were mindful, that is one little step, and it's so easy to undervalue little steps. Always remember that every journey you ever take towards whatever destination or goal it is, it's made out of just a huge accumulation of tiny little steps, step by step. And this is how we establish new healthy habits as well, step by step. Don't expect yourself to, right, I'm going to flip my whole sketch on calendar 180 right now, and I totally expect myself to sync and click with that right away. You won't. Take it step by step at the time, one little habit by one little habit at the time. So, action steps. How do you most easily get into that? Firstly, start to slow down and listen within. Start to really practice single tasking in order to realize, wow, how am I feeling right now? How's my physical body feeling right now? What is my current state right now, right? And that allows you to therefore listen within and respond to what's going on inside of you. You want to slow down enough to notice in what state are you in. Is your body in a yin state? Is it in a yang state, right? And also, you want to slow down in the sense of doing one thing at the time. I just mentioned single tasking, but I want to mention it again. We're so conditioned to be busy all the time, to do as much as we can, be as efficient as we can. And I used the word efficient before as well. And really now, as I go back through some podcast titles and things, what I want to talk about is not efficiency, it's effectiveness. Right, it's not about how much you get done, it's about the quality of what you get done, like how can you work smarter instead of harder. That's the whole essence. And so slow down enough, and that allows you to have breaks, to have little recalibration phases between each thing that you do. It's like, right now I'm recording my podcast, after this I'm going to turn this off, take a few deep breaths, be like, whew, right, okay, been there, done that, that's ticked off. What's the next thing I'm going to do? And then energetically prepare myself for that, right? This is also how we create a lot more calmness and groundedness in our life, and create space for reflection and integration between each and everything that we do, that allows us to check in with our state, that then allows us to align our action to our state, and therefore balance yin and yang. Secondly, if you are a woman who's menstruating, start tracking your menstrual cycle. You know, our hormones are 25% different each week of the month, or each week of the menstrual month or moon cycle, which means that you are showing up completely differently every day to the best of your ability, because your best will be different every day according to your hormones being balanced differently every day as well. So start tracking your menstrual cycle. There are beautiful menstrual cycle tracking charts out there. You can easily Google and find them. You can just do it in your diary. And it would look like, firstly, it gives you an indication of how long your menstrual cycle is. You want to do this tracking like with anything you track, not just for a once-off occasion, but in terms of your menstrual cycle, you want to do that for at least 3 months, longer if you can. I track mine every month for about a couple of years now. And it's incredible the correlations you'll find. So after, say, about 3 months or longer, you will find a pattern, right? You will actually notice, okay, cool, this is how long my menstrual cycle is every month. But also then you want to write down how do you feel on particular days, right? Just write down, oh, today I felt whatever, anxious, flat. Today I felt super active and in go-getter mode, whatever it is. Note it down. And again, the longer you do it, after say 2 or 3 months, reflect, look back at it, and you might find that patterns are arising. You might find that actually in the autumn week, on day 20 of each month of your cycle, you feel agitated AF, and then you might find the pattern as you reflect back on that. Notice, wow, it's every month. Actually, it relates to my menstrual phase. It relates to my autumn week, right? It's not just a random thing. It actually happens at the same time every month when I'm in the same hormone phase. And that's actually your autumn week. Like I said, it's the first week of yin. It's the first week of slowing down. So why do you feel agitated? How do you spend your time? Whom do you spend your time with? What do you do? How do we fix this agitation? How can we create more yin and yang balance? Right? So tracking your menstrual cycle will just give you a lot of insight and correlations. And that's also a big part of the work I do with my one-on-one and group clients. And also in the upcoming immersion, we're going to talk a lot about that. Number 3 is pay attention to the moon cycle. So number 2 was track your menstrual cycle. Number 3 is pay attention to the moon cycle. So that's something everyone can do, whether it's, man, woman, whether you're menstruating or not, pay attention, because you'll find that the energy around the new moon is so different to the energy around the quarter moon, waning, waxing, full moon, and so forth. And you will, again, maybe you can do a moon tracking instead of menstrual cycle tracking, and you might find that you actually find patterns in your moods and how you show up and how you feel at different phases of the moon as well. And again, how can you nurture that? How can you create more balance through calling in more yin at certain times and calling in more yang at certain times? If you track both your menstrual cycle and your moon cycle, then see, do they link up? Do your menstrual cycle and your moon cycle link up? If not, don't beat yourself up about it. But it can, again, just give you a bit of insight of the level of perhaps confusion in your body and different symptoms or different kind of signs coming up at different times. And the more you start to play with this yin and yang balance and really nourish yourself around your menstrual phase or around the new moon phase, the more you will over time recalibrate that. And it will be totally different from woman to woman. It might take you a month. Another woman, it might take 6 months to really recalibrate. And also recalibrate your hormone and reproductive system. Remember that things like PMS, cramping, any irregular flow, heavy flow, whatever it is, scanty flow, discoloration, that any symptoms we get associated with our periods, headaches, breakouts, water retention, are not normal. None of it is normal. It's only common these days, unfortunately, because of how we live. None of it is normal though. And so you find that the more you work with what we're talking about here right now, rebalancing yourself with the moon, with the cycles, with your own cycles, the more you start to resolve those symptoms as well, right? Cool. And number 4 is practice the balance of yin and yang, of pause and action, which is exactly the point I emphasized for the entire time of talking just then. So there are your 4 action steps. Number 1, slow down, to be present, to have reflection spaces in between tasks of your day-to-day life, and listen within to recognize your state and take action on it. Number 2 is track your menstrual cycle if you have one. Find correlations in your moods and your state with where you're at hormonally. Number 3, pay attention to the moon cycle. If you have a menstrual cycle, do both link up? If not, how does the moon cycle correlate with symptoms coming up for you, with emotions, with different states you're in at different times? And then fourth, take action and practice the balance of yin and yang. More yin activity, yin food, yin nourishment, inward time at the new moon phase of your cycle or the moon, and more yang, outgoing, getting stuff done towards the full moon or ovulation phase. All right, beautiful people, thank you so much for jumping on here. Such a pleasure. I feel so grateful to have been in your ears and in some cases on your screen if you're on the State of Flow Facebook group. Once again, thank you so much for being here. Please, if you're on the Facebook group, if you're not, then join us. The link is as always in the podcast show notes below. And join the conversation. Find this thread here in the State of Flow community group and give some input. How has this worked for you? Have you practiced it before? What are your thoughts, questions, input, other thoughts? Maybe you have something that maybe you actually don't resonate with what I'm saying, and that's totally fine. Always take what resonates, leave the rest. If you have a different viewpoint, maybe you want to share it. I'd always love to expand the conversation further and grow the discussion around it. So get active in here. Thank you so much for jumping on. And if you're in the southwest area of Australia and you feel the call and you're really intrigued by what we just talked about, maybe you want to join us for our upcoming Feminine Moon Flow 4-week immersion that is cycling with the moons. This upcoming one will be happening from February 12th, which is a Friday, for every Friday morning, 4 times, 4 weeks in a row, from 9:30 onwards. It'll be a 1.5, maybe 2 hour immersion where we bring in the beautiful ancient lineage of yoga and Ayurveda and have a nourishing movement, somatic bodywork practice, as well as discuss self-care practices, lifestyle adjustments and so forth that you take with you to practice at home as a daily practice for the next week, that particular moon phase. And at the start of the next moon phase, we meet up again, do the same thing for the next moon phase. You take it with you, put it into practice, do it again, and so forth, to create more balance, flow, ease, abundance, success, and all the things in your life. So if you resonate with that, head to my website, earthmedicineco.com, and you'll find the immersion under events and immersions. And otherwise, thank you so much for having been on here, and I'll see you guys next time. Namaste. Alright, beautiful. Guys, here in the group, I just stopped the audio recording for the podcast. This went really well. It seems like the connection of this live is really well too. Fingers crossed, and I'm going to listen back to it. Thank you so much for everyone who's getting around to this. I hope recording the podcast episodes live within the group here can be a great initiative for people to get more active, to really engage, to write comments, to ask questions, and really make this the hub I intended it to be for holistic well-being and any and everything that allows you to come into a state of flow and really thrive. Big love to you all. Have a wonderful weekend, and I see you soon.